Well, now, guess what? These are 5 debts that I'm going to discuss on this board that you're not supposed to take. Or simply means like, these are not areas where you're supposed to borrow for. You know, some of the reasons why you guys, you borrow for, but it's ill-timed. It's actually uncalled for. We usually call it, it's a financial suicide. You can get yourself into a problem as far as the finances are concerned, okay? Stick with me around. This video gonna go for like 15 minutes only. I'm gonna share with you 5 things or 5 debt that you're never supposed to get yourself into this. And by the way, if you're watching me for the first time, this is Good Joseph speaking, and I always talk about money, investment, anything related to that. By the way, this is that information that we were never provided with when we were growing up. Even during the entire school system, we were never provided with. So if you'd like to get it for free on this video, or rather on this channel, is go ahead and subscribe. There's a small button just next to the number of subscribers written subscribe. Hit that magical button. Make sure that as well you leave me a comment on the comment section and like the video. It does not cost you nothing. Let's get into the business, okay? Now, point number 1, the first day that you're never supposed to get it, we call it, by the way, this one I know may sound controversial, but that's the truth. Do not borrow to pay school fees. Do not borrow to pay school fees. Well, if you're watching me from the Western countries like the US, the UK, the Canada, whatever, you can. But in Africa, you already know. All right. Obviously, we borrow on the basis of, hey, let me go ahead and pursue this master. Why? I'm saying this. I had a client who called me and he was like, I actually used like 400,000 to study for my masters on the basis of I was earning. And I want you and me to have this logic, okay? Right now, that guy was earning around. It was around one or 5,000, yeah, 105,000 Kenyan shillings. That's like $1,000 for those who watch from outside the country. Okay, that's like 105,000. So, and the guy had an undergraduate degree, and the guy was like, okay, fine. So I can be able to borrow maybe 400,000 to go and study, and maybe I can increase my earnings maybe to something like 150 or 140,000 or something of sort, just because now you have a master's. So that's like a 35,000 increment. This is a case scenario. This one is a little bit arguable. It's okay, you can. It's a little bit arguable. But now you can find this kind of an individual. You're paying for the school fees. You have never gotten any job. Say you've graduated from high school. You want to go to university or a college. You go ahead and borrow the money to go pursue the degree on the basis of, because you bank on the basis of one day I will get a job, then I'll be able to pay back that money. But you know everything. I mean, if you come from Africa, you already know jobs are there, but they are in limited form. You find most of the people actually getting outside the continent of Africa to go look for a job. And I've seen some families actually even selling some properties, like pieces of lands, to go and study somewhere. They expect that one day you're going to get a job. You go back home. You don't have the land, you don't have the job, but you have the knowledge. And you've never even thought on how you can be able to use that knowledge that you actually acquired in university to get the money out of it. And I know this kind of an argument that, anyway, it's open to anyone, we can argue with it, but the point is, for me, it does not make any sense to you to get into that engagement, and maybe you have to repay this money in a kind of long time. We can actually jump. You know why people usually borrow to go to school? Because most of the people tend to intertwine the school system with them being successful in life, and they do not have any relationship. What you think you're supposed to understand is that when it comes to school and making money, those are like 2 different pathways. You're not supposed to use the book knowledge to look for money, because the book knowledge does not solve you getting the money. The book knowledge solves you being a good employee, to be employed, and what gives you is just an average. For those who come from Kenya, did you hear that guy who actually that guy who burnt his certificates because he's earning I don't know how much amount of money and he has a lot of degrees? So the point is, when you're actually borrowing, I've even seen some families actually getting into debt because of borrowing. You know, you borrow to go the school fees and what have you, then the kid doesn't even end up. I'm not saying that entirely we should not borrow to do the school fees, but the point is, do it with caution. Just understand what you're getting yourself to. And for those who are contesting that on the comment section, because I know probably you're gonna have such kind of an individual and you're open to contest on the same, because this is an open discussion. How many of you have you paid your HELB loan? For those who come from Kenya, they know what I mean by HELB loan. This is Higher Education Loans Board. It's basically like a body that gives you the money when you're studying, so that at least you can be able to, you know, study and be able to repay them back once you get. How many actually manage to do that? Because on a very serious note, most of people actually, they don't even have a job. You know, they cannot be able to pay back that money. So it becomes a little bit of tax. Can you imagine this? And in McHugh, HELB is not like that lender who will be like on your shoulder each and every time. You can just imagine if maybe you borrowed that money from a bank, because I know people usually borrow from a bank and then it turns out to be like, it turns out to be like a very, very tough environment to get yourself into. All right. So yeah, again, I said be very careful and keen and cautious. I said one thing: when it comes to paying school fees and out of you, that is just a sustainable. Is a thing that should keep you. So you're supposed to balance the borrowing of for the school fees and also making sure the kind of a debt that you're getting yourself into. Make sure that you balance the two. Otherwise, you can get yourself into a debt. If you wanna know what I'm talking about, if you're watching this from Western countries, you can relate. You're getting married to an individual who has like a 100 or 200,000 US dollars debt. Another one has the same. So you people, you're getting into the marriage with like a $500,000 in a debt, and maybe you're earning like 30,000 USD, maybe say in a month, and the other one earns like 25. You guys, you have like 50, and you have to. Yo, I'm telling you, it's kind of nasty, okay? But good to them, at least you can be able to get a job. They do that here in Kenya. I'm telling you, you're gonna get yourself into problems. But we are working on our economies and countries, so you're gonna be good, better, okay? Bingo, Africa. Now we go to the next one. The next one that you're not supposed to borrow for or get a debt for is there's something that is called there's something called borrowing to settle the unhealthy debt. Did you hear that? For example, never borrow to settle unhealthy debt. Unhealthy debt. Please, just try to imagine this. Okay, there's a difference between something called the buying off loans. Yeah, so you can have a loan, let's say in a bank, and then maybe you have a circle. The circle that says like, hey, guess what? I know you have like a 1 million loan in a bank. We can help you buy off that loan. We go settle that loan for you in a bank, and again, we actually give you more than what you have so that you can be able to salvage yourself. For example, say you have like a million bob in a bank, so you can go ahead. We can give you two. One, you settle for the loan that you have in the bank, and maybe say that for the bank you're paying something like say 90,000 a month. So this will be maybe, and you're paying that 90,000 a month in a period of say 1.5 years or 2 years. So we're gonna give you 2 million, and then we're gonna give you 4 years for you to pay back that money, and then we're gonna bring down the amount of money that you need to pay. We can bring it now, let's say at 70 or 60 or something of sort. So you're like, sure. By the way, if you settle this one and you give me on top of that, so they can be, that's called a buy-off loan. And maybe that money, maybe say you are doing businesses or maybe you are doing some construction and what have you, that makes sense. And like when you're borrowing to pay the loan that you are not managing to borrow. For example, and this is basically like how countries behave. For example, right now, if you're watching this video, making this video on June of 2024, around there, the beginning of June. And then you find like the government of Kenya is borrowing to pay the previous existing loan. And the same people, there's some, you cannot behave as a government because the government is collecting taxes and what have you. There's prospect of the economies of a given country to grow and what have you. But for you, for example, say you have a problem with paying like 10,000 USD or 10,000 shillings, whatever the money it is that you have, or you owe somebody. And then you have a problem like, okay, fine, I cannot manage to pay this loan. But I have, let's say this is lender A. And then I have lender B. Lender B is telling me, hey, you know what? Hey, you qualify for 15,000. You're like, so how about I borrow the lender B to pay the lender A, but the point is, as of now, you don't even stand to pay this loan. You don't stand. It's already an unhealthy loan. Why is it unhealthy? It's unhealthy in the sense that you're operating outside the loan. You get what I'm saying? You see, there are two ways of getting yourself into a loan. That is within the or being within the loan or outside the loan. Why? For example, if you borrow, like let's say you borrow 100,000 and you have like a net worth of like 300, so you're within the loan, you can be able to pay it back. Okay? Or maybe let's say when you're starting a business, you want to like have 500,000 to start a business, and then you have like 300, then you borrow 200. At least you're within the loan or within the debt or something of sort. So when you borrow to pay the unhealthy debt, the debt that you are unable to pay, probably that debt you took to buy for the sustainables or consumables and what have you, it's unhealthy debt. Then you borrow another one so that you can be able to pay the pre-existed one. For me, honestly speaking, not even for me, there's some of the things are actually standard throughout the time. So that one is uncalled for. You cannot do that. It's actually a wrong financial move. The third thing that you're not supposed to do, as far as or that loan that you or debt that you're not supposed to take is a debt that is called a consumer, or to fund your consumability, to fund your consumer mentality or consumer behavior or something of sort. You find somebody here, you find maybe it's like your friend has bought a car, you want to buy that car, but you don't have the capacity to do that. You want to prove a point. You're also earning good, everything is okay, you are in control of everything, but you aren't. Let's say, for example, your friend has bought a car worth like 1.5 million or even 2 million or whichever the amount of money it is. And there you are, probably you have like a million, you see you're short of 500, and the capacity of you buying that car, you don't have the capacity capacity. Maybe say probably the guy is actually earning 200 Gs a month, you're earning like 100 Gs. So the guy is up for you like 100,000, and then you go again and borrow that money just to buy a car, just to flock with the guy. It doesn't work that way. I don't know why people are actually in this competition to prove a point to people, assuming like everyone is actually so much glared to you or what you're doing. People don't care. Nowadays, people have a lot of, not even nowadays, people have been having busy life. You know what? I always ask people this very simple question. Can you imagine getting yourself into a debt, a very big debt, just to buy a car and show up to your friends and just say, wow, amazing, we love your car. That is it. And then you go back to the reality. And if probably somebody else shows up with a better car than yours, will be like, oh my goodness, yours has been forgotten. That's a reality and that's a fact. So nobody is like literally watching you all over what you're doing with your money and what you're supposed to do and what. Yeah, there may be those suggestions and what expectations, but the moment you'll conquer that, that sort of an influence of peer pressure to actually succumb to them, you doing what they expect you to do, that will be the first financial conquerors that you'll ever do. So point is never going to what you call funding your consumables, buying that thing that you just needed because you want to prove a point or something. Don't get into that. Okay, so we find somebody is earning 30,000 a month and the guy living at 35 years, 35,000 a month. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Or you find somebody is earning like 30,000 a month and the guy is living in a 10 or 13,000 rent in a house. I mean, like, you're struggling. You're barely surviving. You're just simply a month or two away from actually being homeless or broke or something. So be very careful. Anything can happen. So always go, but we pray nothing will happen bad, but it's good to plan. I mean, just because we are praying does not mean that we should be sort of ignorant or some things, okay? We go to the fourth point. The fourth point, or the fourth kind of a debt that you're never supposed to get yourself into, it is at what we call salvaging. Have you heard of something called to salvage a failing business? To salvage a failing business. Never get yourself into a debt to salvage a failing business. And I don't know why most of the people tend to believe like if a business is failing, and by the way, businesses don't fail. The entrepreneurs are the ones that fail. Yeah. So you see, you find somebody saying like, "Hey, I just want to salvage this business." You think, for example, if let's say you have low sales and something, you tend to think like, hey, guess what? Probably this business is doing so because it doesn't have enough stock. So you think of borrowing to restock the business so that you think that the business will salvage. No, maybe probably it's not about the money. It's probably about the location, probably about your personality, probably about your customer service, probably about your, what do you call, the information that you've gathered when you're starting or before starting that business. Probably some of the business are generally toxic business. Okay, so some business you're actually on a learning curve, and the learning curve does not mean you have to pump in more money at all the time. See, what you're supposed to understand is that don't just take a loan to salvage any given business. Find out before you justify the business needs money. Find out why is it failing. Is it because of the people I've employed? Is it because of the quality of the product that I'm selling, the quantity, my suppliers, my distributors, the location, the security? Or is it about me? Am I even operating the right business? Is the business telling me that now this is a toxic one, I should vacate immediately with immediate effect? Because just like we have toxic relationships, we usually have the toxic businesses. And you can just actually be there in a business whereby you're trying to salvage the business, you're salvaging the business, and is actually getting yourself into debts and more debts and more debts. Why? Most of the people, they usually have this fear of, hey, guess what? I've come very far from with this business. I cannot imagine it's, dropping the business. I usually see some people closing the doors of the business, because you don't want to lose the location, but you don't even have the money. You're having some overheads and you're not even earning anything from that. Some things are just okay if you can just release them and let go. There is something called sink cost fallacy, whereby you think like, you've gone too far, now actually turning back to go somewhere else, like you lose more than, you get what I'm saying? Go learn about that thing called sink cost fallacy. It can actually salvage you to actually making the right decision. And the last one again, this one, never take a debt to fund wedding. Oh my goodness. I know men will agree with me on this, but ladies, we might actually rub some shoulders. Never take a debt. The moment you realize that you need to take a debt to do wedding, the vibrations of economies are telling you, you cannot afford it. If it is not a debt about investment, it's just a thing that makes you happy. The vibrations of economies are telling you, you cannot afford it. And if you cannot afford it, then go back, work a little bit hard so that you can afford it. Then you can come back and you can acquire it. There's something called the delayed gratification. Just delay the process, then you can acquire it later. But if you feel like, I just want it now and now and now, if you actually twist the life and try to, be chesty, be chesty is, just dumping like it has to happen now, like you're so much rigid in life, you're gonna actually enjoy yourself financially. And by the way, you see what? If you affect your finances, do you know one thing that it has tendency of affecting when your mental health? True. That marks the end of my video. I promised like 15 minutes, and there we have it. And by the way, don't forget to as well pick that number of mine from the description of this specific video. Shoot me a call if you'd like to get my services. And don't forget to subscribe and leave me a comment in the comment section. For now, it's a goodbye and see you in the next one.